I had always been a woman who cherished her family above all else. At 65, I found my life wrapped in the rhythm of routine, quiet mornings spent in the kitchen evenings with Stephen and his family, and a bond with my two sons that no one could break. My husband, Raphael, had passed away 10 years ago, leaving behind a hole that would never quite heal, but I'd filled it with love, patience, and the hope that my children would carry the legacy of family unity. Stephen, my oldest, was always a hard-working architect. He lived for his work, and though we shared a warm, pleasant relationship, it was often overshadowed by the long hours he spent away from home. My younger son, Ivan, was a co-pilot, always on the move, living a life of adventure and wonder. I admired him for chasing his childhood dream, but I often felt the pang of loneliness in his absence. My world had always been anchored by Stephen's little family. His wife, Araceli, and my grandson Matthew filled the house with laughter and life. Araceli was a woman I thought I knew well. She was beautiful, poised, always perfect in every way. She had been a part of our family since she married Stephen. From the first time I met her, I believed her to be everything I could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law. Her warmth, her way with Matthew, and the kindness she extended to everyone around her made her a fixture in our home. We shared countless moments over the years, everything from holiday dinners to simple conversations about life, love, and the little things that filled our days. But I never imagined that beneath her perfect exterior, something darker was brewing. It all started one morning, a quiet morning, just like any other. I was cleaning up after breakfast, my hands buried in sudsy water as I washed the dishes. Stephen had left for work early, and Matthew had already been picked up by the school bus. Araceli, as usual, went upstairs to take a shower, her voice drifting down from the bathroom as she called out, "Mom, I'm going to take a quick shower." I smiled, responding with a simple, "Okay." It was a routine I had come to expect. Then the phone rang. I dried my hands and picked up the receiver, the familiar voice of my younger son, Ivan, filling the line. "Mom, I just wanted to check in," he said cheerfully. Ivan's voice always felt like a warm hug, especially with his busy pilot schedule. He was my pride and joy, the son who had made it big in the sky, chasing his dreams, like I'd always wanted him to. We chatted briefly about his flight and life on the road, but something in his tone changed. He sounded uneasy, as though he was struggling to find the right words. "Mom," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Something's really weird. Araceli is at the house, but that can't be right. I have her passport in my hand. She just boarded my flight to France." I froze. "What do you mean, even Araceli is upstairs? She just went to take a shower," I said, trying to reassure him. His silence on the other end of the line stretched on, and the unease in his voice grew. "I'm serious, Mom. I have her passport right here. It's her picture, and she's sitting in first class right next to a man who looks really rich. They're talking close like they're a couple." His words felt like a punch to my gut. I stood motionless in the kitchen, my hand gripped tightly around the phone. Everything in me screamed that something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. "Are you sure, Ivan?" I said, my voice trembling. "Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe you're seeing things wrong." But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The doubt was seeping in, even as I tried to convince myself otherwise. "I'm sure, Mom," he said, his voice firm, now full of confusion. I went back to the plane to grab some paperwork, and I saw her. There's no way it's not her. She's sitting with this man, laughing just like you and Dad used to do. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I suddenly couldn't breathe. And then, as though the world had just shifted in an instant, I heard footsteps on the stairs. The bathroom door opened, and Araceli's voice floated down just as sweet as always. "Mom, who is it?" she called. I couldn't think, couldn't speak. My heart was racing, my mind a blur. I whispered into the phone, my voice barely audible. "Yvonne, I just heard her. She's here. I swear I just heard her voice." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Yvonne's voice was laced with disbelief, tinged with a growing fear. "Mom, I'm telling you, I'm looking right at her. She's sitting next to this man laughing. I can't make this up." The water stopped running upstairs, and I heard Araceli come down the stairs, her hair damp, and her expression casual as always. "Mom, I'm heading to the market. Do you need anything?" she asked, smiling like everything was perfectly normal. My heart was racing, but I forced a smile. "No, honey. Just bring back some tomatoes if you can," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of everything I was trying to hold in. Araceli grabbed her basket and left, and I stood frozen in the kitchen, my heart beating wildly. What was happening? How could she be here and on Ivan's flight at the same time? Was it even possible I couldn't understand? I wanted to confront her, but the words wouldn't come. I felt like I was drowning in confusion, unable to hold on to any semblance of reality. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze. I kept replaying the conversation with Ivan in my mind, and everything I'd known about Araceli began to feel like a lie. My trust in her, built over years of shared moments and memories, began to unravel. I kept thinking of the passport, the man on the plane, and the way she had been acting lately. It was like something had shifted in her, like someone had replaced the person I thought I knew with someone else. That evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Araceli came home, her usual bright smile in place, as she entered the house. I wanted to ask her everything, but the words wouldn't come. The doubt I had felt earlier was now a tight knot in my chest. I sat down at the table with Matthew and Stephen, trying to force myself to act normal, but inside, I felt like I was about to crack. Matthew babbled on about his day, but I couldn't focus. I was too busy watching Araceli, noticing every little detail, her distracted smile, the way she kept fidgeting with her hands. She wasn't the same, not anymore. I glanced at Stephen, trying to gauge his reaction, but he seemed distant, lost in his own thoughts. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him about it, not yet. I wasn't sure how to say the words. What would I even say? How could I explain what Ivan had told me without sounding like I was imagining things? As the evening wore on, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I had to know the truth, whatever it was. I needed answers, even if it meant shattering the peaceful facade of my family. The next morning, I woke up feeling the weight of yesterday's conversation with Ivan lingering in the back of my mind. The doubts were festering like an open wound, and I couldn't ignore them any longer. The house was eerily quiet, with Stephen already at work and Matthew off at school. I couldn't sit still, couldn't focus on anything. The questions kept spinning in my head, each one more urgent than the last. I tried to go about my morning routine, but everything felt off. Even the simple act of cleaning up after breakfast felt like a chore I couldn't handle. Araceli had already left for the market by the time I had finished my coffee. She was always so routine, so dependable, that it felt like I could set my watch by her comings and goings. But today, I felt an unsettling sense of unease. I sat in my armchair, staring out the window, watching the cars pass by in the street. Every little detail seemed to jump out at me. The way Araceli had smiled yesterday, the way she seemed so distracted and distant. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, and I needed to get to the bottom of it. As I sat there, my mind racing, the phone rang again. It was Ivan. His voice came through the line, soft, but full of concern. "Mom, I've been thinking about everything you told me. I'm coming home today. I can't shake the feeling that something is seriously wrong. I could feel my chest tightening. His words were like a breath of fresh air, but also like a weight pressing down on my lungs. Ivan, what's going on? What do you mean I'm so confused? I said, my voice trembling. I don't know, Mom, but I'm going to figure it out. I promise. I could hear the determination in his voice, and for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe together, we could get to the truth. Later that afternoon, I couldn't sit still anymore. I decided to go out for a walk to clear my head. The sun was setting, and the cool breeze felt like a gentle balm on my skin. I walked slowly, letting my mind wander. But every time I thought of Araceli, every time I thought of Ivan's call, the knot in my stomach tightened. I passed by the market where Araceli had gone that morning, and I couldn't help but stop. I wanted to see if she was still there, if I could find some clue, something that would explain everything. But when I looked around, there was no sign of her. I felt a sense of dread rising in my chest, a feeling that I was on the edge of something I wasn't ready to face. Just then, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Lucy, one of the neighbors, walking toward me. She smiled when she saw me, but there was something in her eyes, something guarded. Stella, I've been meaning to talk to you, she said softly. Have you noticed anything strange about Araceli lately? I felt my breath catch in my throat. I hadn't expected this. I had been so focused on my own suspicions that I hadn't considered the possibility that others might have noticed. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucy glanced around, her voice dropping to a whisper. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but she's been acting different. The other day, she came by to pick up some vegetables, but she was so cold, like she didn't even see me. It was strange, Stella. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the same thing I had been feeling. Something was off. Something was wrong with Araceli, and I needed to find out what it was. Lucy, I'm really worried, I said, my voice breaking. I think something's going on with her, and I don't know what to do. Lucy reached out and put a comforting hand on my shoulder. Stella, you're not imagining things. I've seen it too. I don't know what's going on, but I know you're not alone in feeling this way. I gave her a grateful smile, but deep down, the unease was growing. It wasn't just me. Everyone was noticing it. I wasn't losing my mind. Araceli was changing, and I had no idea why. That night, Stephen came home tired and distracted, as he usually was. He greeted me absently, not noticing the tension in the room. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my notebook open in front of me, filled with the strange observations I had been making. The entries were growing longer, each one more unsettling than the last. Araceli's change in behavior was becoming more pronounced, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. Stephen, I need to talk to you, I said quietly, my voice shaky. He looked up at me, startled. What's going on, Mom? You seem upset. I hesitated, not sure how to say what I needed to say. I think something's wrong with Araceli. She's been acting strange, distant, cold. She's not the person I thought she was. Stephen frowned, confusion and concern clouding his features. What are you talking about? She's been fine, hasn't she? I haven't noticed anything different. I shook my head, feeling a wave of frustration rise in me. It's more than that, Stephen. There are things I've noticed, little things, things that don't add up. I'm not sure what's going on, but I need you to believe me. I could see the doubt in his eyes, the hesitation, and I knew that part of him didn't want to believe it. How could he? After all these years, how could he imagine that Araceli, the woman he married, the woman he had trusted, could be hiding something from him? Mom, I don't know what you're trying to say, but you have to understand Araceli is part of this family. He said, his voice soft but firm. She's not perfect, but neither are we. Please just trust her." His words stung, and for a moment, I felt the weight of all the years of love and loyalty I had given to this family. But that love couldn't blind me anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when my heart told me otherwise. "Stephen," I said quietly, my voice trembling. "I love you, but I can't ignore what's happening anymore. I have to find out the truth. For your sake, for Matthew's sake." The silence between us stretched on thick and suffocating. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer. "I'll talk to her, but please don't do anything rash, Mom." I nodded, but deep down, I knew that the truth wouldn't wait. It couldn't. Not anymore. The next morning, I could feel the tension in the air like a thick fog that refused to lift. Stephen had gone to work, and Matthew was off at school. I spent the morning cleaning the same mundane tasks I always did, but today they felt heavier, like I was trapped in a cycle I couldn't break. Every time I moved, I found myself thinking about the conversation with Lucy, thinking about what Araceli might be hiding, about the strange woman Ivan had seen on his flight, and the small details I had collected over the last few weeks. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces seemed to fit together. But I wasn't sure what the final picture was. By noon, I couldn't sit still any longer. I decided to walk to the market. Maybe I would find Araceli there. Maybe I would see her acting normal again, like the woman I had known for years. I hoped for some sign that I was wrong, that I was just overthinking things. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. I needed answers. As I walked down the familiar street, I kept my eyes peeled for her, but the market was quiet. The familiar vendors greeted me as I passed by, but there was no sign of Araceli. I lingered for a moment, thinking back to the day when I had first started to notice the cracks in her behavior. The little changes, her uncharacteristic irritability, her odd behavior with her handwriting, the left hand. It all started to feel like too many inconsistencies to ignore. I decided to head back home. I walked slowly, taking in the sights around me, but every step felt heavier than the last. My thoughts kept returning to the conversation with Stephen the night before. He hadn't believed me. And how could he? How could he believe that his wife, the woman he loved, was hiding something from him? I couldn't blame him. He wanted to believe that everything was fine, but deep down, I knew the truth was slipping through the cracks, and I needed to uncover it before it consumed us all. When I returned home, the house felt suffocating. I walked through the front door, greeted by silence. The house was empty. No Araceli, no Matthew. The quiet felt oppressive, and I suddenly felt like I was alone in this fight, fighting for answers that no one else was willing to see. I took a seat at the kitchen table and stared at the family photos that lined the walls. Stephen and Araceli on their wedding day, Matthew's first birthday, Ivan in his pilot uniform. All these moments frozen in time now seemed like they belonged to a different life, a life I wasn't sure was real anymore. I took out my notebook and began to write down everything I had observed. Every conversation with Araceli, every small change in her behavior, every odd detail that had set off alarms in my mind. I had to piece it all together. I had to understand what was going on. As I wrote, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ivan. "Mom, I'm coming home tonight. We need to talk." I felt a rush of relief. At least Ivan was on my side. He was the only one who had seen the truth, the only one who believed me. I quickly texted him back. "Please, Ivan, don't worry about me. Just come. We'll figure this out together." I didn't have much time before he arrived, so I continued my writing, my hand trembling as I wrote down each new detail. I tried to focus, tried to keep my mind sharp, but the sense of dread kept gnawing at me. I couldn't ignore the feeling that we were running out of time. The doorbell rang around 6 that evening. My heart skipped a beat. I stood up and rushed to the door, my pulse quickening. When I opened it, there stood Ivan, looking as calm as ever, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Hey, Mom," he said quietly, stepping inside. "I've been thinking about everything, and I think I know what's going on. I'm not going to let you go through this alone." I felt a rush of emotion as I hugged him tightly. I hadn't realized how much I needed him, how much I needed someone to believe me. Ivan pulled away slightly, looking at me with concern. "Mom, what's going on? What have you found out?" I sat him down in the living room, the same room where so many family moments had happened. It suddenly felt like a stranger's house, a place filled with too many unanswered questions. I handed him the notebook, feeling the weight of all my suspicions written on those pages. "I don't know, Ivan. I'm scared. I feel like I'm losing my grip on everything." Ivan scanned through the pages, quickly, his brow furrowing as he took in the details. "Mom, this is insane! How did you even notice all of this?" "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling. "I just started paying attention, and everything started to fall apart." "Have you talked to Steven about this?" Ivan asked, his voice full of concern. I shook my head. "He doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm just imagining things. But I can't ignore it anymore. I know something's wrong." We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of the situation settling between us. Finally, Ivan spoke again. "I think we need to confront her. We can't keep going like this. We need to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be." I nodded, a sense of determination rising within me. Ivan was right. We couldn't keep hiding from the truth. We had to face it, even if it tore our family apart. "We need to get to the bottom of this," I said firmly. "And we need to do it together." That evening, we made a plan. Ivan would confront Araceli the next day, while I would stay back and try to get more answers from her behavior. We had to know what was going on, and if Araceli was hiding something, we would find out. The truth couldn't remain buried any longer. The next morning, the air in the house felt thicker than usual. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, each second stretching into eternity. The weight of the plan we'd set in motion the night before was pressing on me, and I knew that today everything would change. There was no going back after this. Ivan had gone out early to prepare. He told me he'd meet with Araceli later in the day, but I had no idea what would unfold when they spoke. I tried to focus on the house, on the chores, but every movement seemed mechanical. I walked through the rooms, dusting and tidying, but my mind was elsewhere. My thoughts were consumed by Araceli and the mysterious layers of lies she had built around herself. How could I have been so blind for so long? How could I have missed it? By the time the clock struck noon, I could feel the heaviness in my chest, a tension I couldn't shake. I found myself looking out the window, waiting for something to happen, though I wasn't entirely sure what. Araceli hadn't come downstairs yet, and I wondered if she had any idea that everything was about to be laid bare. I heard the front door creak open. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed to the door, expecting to see Ivan, but when I opened it, there was only Araceli. She stood there in the doorway, her face as calm as ever, but something about her seemed off. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and there was a distance in her gaze that unsettled me. "Good afternoon, Mom," she said in that soft voice I'd grown so familiar with. She stepped inside, her presence filling the room, and yet I felt a chill run through me. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice a little sharper than I intended. I wasn't sure if I was ready for her answers, but I couldn't hold back anymore. Araceli hesitated for a moment before replying. "I went to the market. You know I always do." I nodded, but my mind was racing. I glanced down at her hands. She was holding her familiar wicker basket, the same one she always used. But today, there was something strange about the way she clutched it. Something about her posture was rigid, defensive, as if she was trying to hide something. It was almost as though she was waiting for me to say something, to ask her more questions. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I couldn't. Instead, I chose to remain silent, letting the tension stretch between us. Araceli shifted nervously on her feet, and I could tell she was starting to feel the pressure. "I need to talk to you, Araceli," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I know what you've been doing. I know everything." Her face paled, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by that cool, controlled mask she had perfected over the years. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I stepped closer to her, my gaze never leaving hers. "Don't lie to me. I know about Isadora. I know about the twins, the secret you've been hiding from us all this time." Araceli froze. Her eyes widened, and for the first time in years, I saw a crack in her perfect facade. She was caught, and she knew it. She started, but she couldn't find the words. I didn't wait for her to finish. "You've been using your sister as a decoy, pretending to be her when it suited you. How long have you been doing this, Araceli? How many times did you trick us into thinking everything was fine?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Why did you do it? What is it you've been hiding?" She stood there completely still, as if the weight of the truth was finally sinking in. For a long while, she didn't speak. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "I never wanted any of this. I didn't want to hurt you, Stella. I didn't want to hurt Stephen." I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, mixed with anger and betrayal. Then why, Araceli? Why would you do this to your own family? Why would you drag everyone into your web of lies? Her face twisted in something between guilt and defiance. I didn't know how to get out. I felt trapped. When I met Charles, everything changed. He promised me a better life, a life I never thought I could have. And I thought maybe I could have everything I wanted without all the compromises. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. The confession hung in the air like a cloud of smoke, thick and suffocating. I took a step back, trying to process her words. "You've been living a lie, Araceli. Not just to Stephen and me, but to yourself. And now, everything is falling apart because of it." She collapsed onto the couch, her hands trembling in her lap. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just didn't know how to stop." The room felt suffocating. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The truth so brutal and raw had crashed down on us all, and I didn't know how to react. I thought about Stephen, about Matthew, and about everything that had been shattered. My heart ached for my son, for my family, and for the woman who had betrayed us all. "I can't fix this, Araceli," I said quietly, my voice full of sorrow. "I can't pretend that everything is okay anymore. You've broken this family, and I don't know if we can ever be whole again." Araceli's face crumpled, and for the first time, she looked truly vulnerable. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to destroy everything. I just wanted to feel alive. I wanted to be angry, to yell at her for everything she had done. But in that moment, I realized something. As much as I was hurt, as much as I wanted to scream, I couldn't change what had already happened. The damage was done. All I could do now was try to move forward, try to heal the wounds that had been inflicted. Just as I was about to say something else, the doorbell rang. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I saw Ivan standing there, his face filled with determination. Mom, he said, his voice firm. It's time to end this. We have to confront the truth once and for all. I nodded, a wave of relief washing over me. It was time. Time for everything to come to light. Time for us to reclaim our family, to rebuild what had been broken. We couldn't go back, but maybe, just maybe, we could start again. As Ivan stepped inside, I could feel the gravity of the moment. Everything I had been holding inside, all the pain and confusion, was finally coming to a head. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and there was no turning back. Ivan walked past me, his eyes scanning the room, his expression hardened with determination. I could tell by his demeanor that he had made up his mind. He was no longer the carefree, easygoing young man I had raised. He was a pilot, a man of action, and he had learned how to face things head-on. "Where is she?" he asked, his gaze settling on Araceli, who was sitting on the couch, her head bowed. Araceli didn't speak at first. Her eyes were red, her shoulders slumped with defeat. It was as if all the bravado she once carried had evaporated in an instant. She knew the truth was out, and there was nowhere left to hide. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Ivan's face hardened. "That's what you always say, isn't it? But look around, Araceli. Look at what you've done. You've torn this family apart, and for what? For a lie? For a life you thought you could have without us. You made a choice, and now you have to face the consequences." Araceli flinched at his words, but she didn't try to argue. She knew he was right. She had made her choices, and now it was time to pay the price. I stood quietly watching them, feeling a deep sense of loss. As much as I wanted to be angry, as much as I wanted to blame her for everything, I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for the woman who had once been so close to me. The woman who had shared my home, my family, and who had, in a way, become like a daughter to me. But in that moment, I realized that I had to let go of the past. I couldn't keep holding on to the image of the perfect daughter-in-law I had once admired. The truth was too harsh, too painful, and it was time to face it, no matter how much it hurt. "I never meant to hurt anyone," Araceli said, again her voice shaking. I just wanted more. I wanted a life that wasn't so hard. I didn't think I was asking for too much. But you were Araceli," Ivan said sharply, his voice cold. "You lied to everyone. You used Isadora, you used your own family, and you took everything for granted. You don't get to pretend that you didn't hurt us." There was a long pause. Araceli opened her mouth to speak again, but nothing came out. She simply sat there, her eyes filled with regret, her hands trembling in her lap. I looked at Ivan and nodded. "I think we need to end this. We need to make sure that we protect ourselves from any more harm. This isn't just about you, Araceli. This is about Stephen Matthew and the rest of us. You've put everyone in danger with your lies, and it's time to make sure that we're all safe from here on out." Ivan nodded in agreement. "I'm going to make sure she never hurts us again. I'll talk to the lawyer, get the divorce papers in order. We'll make sure that she can't cause any more trouble." I could see that Ivan was resolved. His face was set in determination, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope. Maybe we could move on from this. Maybe we could heal. But it was going to take time. Araceli looked up at me, then her eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered. Don't tell Stephen. He doesn't know the full truth. He doesn't know everything I've done. He doesn't know about Charles. I froze. Charles. The name sent a chill through me. I had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed hit me like a punch to the gut. What does Charles have to do with this? I demanded. Araceli swallowed hard, her face pale. He's the one I've been seeing. He promised me a new life. He told me I could leave everything behind and start fresh. He was going to help me, but I couldn't go through with it. I couldn't leave Stephen and Matthew like that. Her words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. I could feel the weight of her confession pressing down on me. For the first time, I saw the real Araceli, the woman who had been hiding behind the perfect mask all along.
I'm done with this, Ivan said, his voice firm. We're going to make sure this doesn't go any further. I'll make sure Stephen knows everything. It's time for him to see the truth.
I knotted my throat tight with emotion. We'll protect him. We'll protect Matthew. And we'll make sure that no one can ever hurt this family again. As I looked at Araceli, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I had loved her once, but that woman was gone now, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. It was a hard truth to swallow, but I knew that it was the only way to move forward. We couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. Araceli. I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. You've hurt us all, but I hope that someday you'll understand the damage you've caused. And I hope that someday you'll find a way to make things right. But for now, you need to leave. You need to go. She didn't argue. She stood up slowly, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She didn't look at me, didn't say another word. She simply turned and walked out the door, her footsteps heavy, as if she were carrying the weight of all the lies she had told. When the door closed behind her, I felt a sense of finality. It was over. The storm had passed, and now all we could do was rebuild. Ivan turned to me, his face softening. We'll get through this, Mom. We'll make sure Matthew is safe. We'll make sure Stephen is okay, and we'll heal. I promise. I smiled at him, feeling a flicker of hope deep inside. I believe you, Ivan. We'll get through this. Together. That night, as I sat in the living room watching the soft light of the lamps flicker, I realized something. The truth may have torn us apart, but it also gave us the strength to rebuild. It gave us the strength to face the future, no matter how difficult it may be. And as I looked around at my family, at the pieces of our broken lives that we would put back together, I knew one thing for sure: we were going to be okay. We would heal, we would move forward, and we would never let anyone take away our peace again. The days that followed were quiet, almost painfully so. It felt as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for something, anything, to break the stillness. Ivan kept his word. He made sure to stay close, helping with everything from taking Matthew to school to taking charge of the legal matters. I could see the strain in his eyes, but he wore it silently, like a heavy coat he couldn't take off. Stephen, however, wasn't the same. He retreated into himself, spending most of his time in his office or out at work. Every now and then, I would hear him in the kitchen, a quiet sigh escaping his lips as he poured himself a drink, his mind clearly elsewhere. He hadn't spoken much since that night, the night everything changed, but I knew he was carrying the weight of his own heartache. He had trusted Araceli, loved her, and now that love had turned into something unrecognizable. Matthew, on the other hand, was a little lost. At 7 years old, he was too young to fully understand the gravity of what had happened, but he knew something was wrong.
The nights when he would cling to me and ask about his mother, his voice filled with confusion, were the hardest. How do you explain betrayal to a child who only knows love in its purest form?
One afternoon, I sat with him in the garden, watching him as he played with his toy trucks in the dirt. The sun was setting, casting a soft, golden light over everything, and I thought back to the times when our family had been whole. It felt like a lifetime ago.
Grandma,
Matthew said, his small voice breaking the silence. "When is Mommy coming home?"
I smiled softly, though my heart was breaking inside. Sweetheart, sometimes people have to go away to figure things out. But you know what? You're not alone. You've got me. You've got your dad, and we're going to make sure you're always loved. He looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. Will Mommy come back?
I took a deep breath, unsure of how to answer. I wasn't ready to shatter his world completely. "I don't know, darling. But one thing I can promise is that we're going to be okay, no matter what happens." He nodded slowly, but I could tell he wasn't fully satisfied with my answer. I couldn't blame him. I wasn't satisfied either. As much as I tried to comfort him, I was still trying to come to terms with everything myself. That night, after Matthew had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The house was eerily quiet, and it felt like the silence was pressing in on me. I thought about everything Araceli had taken from us, the lies, the betrayal, the confusion. And then I thought about Isadora, the young woman who had been nothing but a pawn in her game. The one who had unwittingly helped Araceli cover up her lies, only to be left with nothing but guilt and regret. I'd spoken to Isadora a few more times in the days following the confrontation. She had come over apologizing again and again, but I could see the pain in her eyes. She had been used just like the rest of us. And while I felt pity for her, there was also a part of me that felt a deep sense of betrayal. She had looked just like Araceli, but in the end, she wasn't the one who had broken our family apart. Araceli had been the architect of it all. But life doesn't work in clean, simple lines. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that no one is truly innocent in this world. Araceli had used Isadora, but somewhere deep down, I knew that Araceli had her own reasons for what she'd done, reasons I might never understand.
Stephen came into the living room that evening, his face drawn with exhaustion. He walked over to where I was sitting, his steps heavy, and he sat down beside me.
"Mom," he said quietly, his voice rough. "I think we need to talk." I nodded, knowing this moment had been coming. He had been quiet for too long, and I could tell that whatever was on his mind had been weighing on him.
I don't know what to think anymore. He continued, his hands clasped together in his lap. Araceli, she's not who I thought she was, and I don't know what to do with all this. I feel like I've lost everything. I reached out and placed my hand on his. You haven't lost everything, Stephen. You've got me. You've got Matthew, and we've got each other. We'll rebuild. You just have to take it one step at a time. He shook his head. I don't even know where to start. She was my wife. I gave her everything. And now I find out she's been lying to me, using me. I don't know how to forgive that.
I squeezed his hand tighter. Forgiveness isn't something you do for her. It's something you do for yourself. You have to let go of the anger, Stephen. For your own peace. For Matthew's peace. He didn't answer right away. He just sat there, staring into space. I could see the battle within him, the need to hold on to the past, to the memories of the life they had built together, and the painful realization that it had all been a lie. I don't think I'll ever understand why she did it, he finally said. But maybe I don't need to. Maybe I just need to focus on what's in front of me now. And what's in front of me is you, Mom. And Matthew. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Stephen had finally started to see what I'd been seeing all along. The world hadn't ended. It had shifted, yes, but there was still hope. There was still love. And that was all we needed. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to settle. Araceli's departure, the divorce proceedings, and the revelations about Isadora, it all became a part of the past. But it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of something new. Stephen started to rebuild his life, taking small steps toward healing. Isadora, though still a part of our lives, began to find her own way too. She wasn't perfect, but she was sincere, and that made all the difference. I could see the way she cared for Stephen and Matthew, and in time, it became clear that she was helping to fill the hole Araceli had left behind. As for me, I found myself learning to live in the present. I spent more time with Matthew, watching him grow, watching him learn, and listening to him laugh. I started knitting again, taking comfort in the simple tasks that had once been my refuge. The house felt a little less empty, a little less broken.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But we were moving forward one step at a time. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. As the weeks passed, I could feel the weight of what we'd been through slowly lifting. It didn't happen all at once. Sometimes the memories of that night, the betrayal, the lies, the heartbreak would creep up on me like a shadow. But I learned to push them aside. It wasn't denial, but survival. For Stephen, for Matthew, and for myself.
Matthew, though, was the one who truly amazed me. Despite everything that had happened, he continued to show a resilience I hadn't expected from someone so young. He still had his questions, of course, but they were fewer now. Instead of asking where his mother was, he began asking about the future, about the new adventures he could have, about his school projects, about the trips we would take when he got older. He had inherited that stubborn optimism from his father, and it was the one thing that kept my heart from completely shattering.
One afternoon, Stephen and I sat on the porch watching Matthew run around the garden. His laughter was like a balm to the pain we had all carried for so long.
"Do you think we'll be okay?" Stephen asked, breaking the silence between us.
I looked at him and smiled softly. "We already are, Stephen. It just takes time. Healing, I mean. But we'll get there. You and me and Matthew, we'll be okay." He nodded, but his eyes were distant, lost in thought. I don't know how to look at her again. Araceli, after everything.
"I know," I said, feeling the sting of his words. "But maybe, Stephen, it's time to let go of the anger. Holding on to it only keeps you in that place of pain. You need to free yourself from it."
"I thought I had," he said, shaking his head. "But I still think about all the things I could have done differently. Maybe if I'd seen it sooner, things wouldn't have turned out this way." I squeezed his hand gently. "You did the best you could. You loved her. You trusted her. That's not a mistake. The mistake is hers, not yours."
He exhaled slowly, letting my words sink in. It wasn't a quick fix, not even close. But I could see him starting to let go of some of the bitterness that had kept him trapped. Slowly, piece by piece, the broken parts of his heart were being mended. As for me, I continued to reflect on everything. My whole life had been built around the idea of family, and now, in the wake of the storm, I was left to rebuild it in a new shape. But this time, I wasn't just rebuilding a house. I was rebuilding a sense of trust. I was teaching myself that sometimes the greatest strength comes from vulnerability, and that, as much as it hurt, I had to trust again. One day, as I was folding clothes in the laundry room, I heard a familiar voice. It was Isadora. I froze for a moment, unsure of how to react. She had been a quiet presence in our lives, always there, but never really part of the family in the way I wanted her to be. But something about her presence felt different now, more like someone who had truly found a place in our home. I walked into the living room to find her sitting on the couch, holding Matthew's hand as he showed her a drawing he had made of a superhero. "I just wanted to let you know," Isadora said softly, looking up at me with a sincere smile. "I'm sorry for everything, for all the confusion, for the lies, but I want you to know that I'm here, and I'll be here no matter what happens." I nodded, my heart heavy with the weight of everything she had gone through. I had every reason to be angry with her, to hold on to the pain she had helped create. But instead, I felt a softening inside me. Because in the end, she wasn't the enemy. She had been a victim of Araceli's manipulation, just like the rest of us. "You've already done more than enough, Isadora," I said, my voice gentle. "You're a part of this family now, and I'm grateful for that." She looked at me, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you. That means more than you know." And just like that, the family that had been torn apart by betrayal, by lies, was starting to heal. Slowly, painfully, but with each passing day, we were learning how to trust again, how to love again. And the scars that had marked us began to fade, not because we forgot what had happened, but because we had learned how to move forward despite it. That night, as I tucked Matthew into bed, he looked up at me with his bright, trusting eyes and said, "Grandma, I'm happy again." My heart ached with love for him. "Me too, sweetheart," I whispered. "Me too." And for the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The storm had passed, and although the aftermath had left its mark, we were still standing together. As I sat in the quiet house, reflecting on everything we had been through, I knew that life would never be the same. But I also knew that it didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be real. And with my family, our imperfect, beautiful family, I was ready for whatever came next. If you've made it this far, thank you for being with me on this journey. If you've ever been betrayed or hurt by someone you loved, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to grieve. But remember, healing is possible. Don't let the lies define you. You have the strength to rebuild and the love to carry you through. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. I want to hear from you. Tell me how you've healed from your own struggles. Your story could help someone else find their way. Comment below, and let's keep the conversation going.